Wow. I think of that as Pachelbel's Canon performed by jazz musicians in the parking lot of a Dead show.
That's right.
It's about right, right? All right. We have a few announcements. Stephanie's been beating the bushes and creating a fabulous amount of outreach and fundraising for Namoli Brennett, and that concert will be here. It sounds like it's going to become a very big deal. It's a benefit for the trans program at the Edward Kennedy Community Health Center in Worcester, and I cannot tell you how hard and smart and well Stephanie's been pitching that event, and it should be great. That we might even have our Jim McGovern here too. So there should be something you try to get to. That's June 14th at night. During the day, in the afternoon, from about 1 to 3 in Worcester at the Worcester Common behind City Hall, there's a No Kings rally. If you're interested in that kind of political stuff, and both Stephanie, myself, and Jean are also going to be there, led by our own Kay Rusk. So pulling it all together, there's a lot of our voices there. Should be a powerful event. That's also going to have Jim McGovern at it too. Just announcements. The weekend of the 28th, that Saturday night into the last Saturday in June into Sunday, there's a camping trip I've organized with my other churches. There'll be a lot of Bill Ricca people there. Some folks met some of them at my dad's memorial on Thursday night, so there'll be some common faces. So that's at the, where is that again? I forget. It's at Otter River State Park, and it's sort of, we're going to gather there about 1, spend the night, and then clean out of there by about 10 in the morning. That Saturday is also, that 14th, next Saturday is a busy day. There's also, I'd love to have a representative from us go to this, because I pitched and said we'd be involved, and then we got involved in the political stuff. This is turning guns into garden tools. If anyone can attend that, it's going to be in the parking lot of Nativity, the Episcopal Church just down the street. If anybody would go there and represent us, that would be fabulous. What else is going on? Yell at me. Oh, we got a new sign. I'll hold it up. Maybe it's both sides, I don't know. Okay, so this is a sign we're getting neighbored. You might see there's some street signs that are coming to life, so we're trying to market ourselves a little better. Probably the most important news of the day is there is an annual meeting here today. People will speak in short, concise terms.
Not too much Robert's rules, please.
Yes. Okay, there we are. Today's opening words are very simple. In the frame of a Disney-like amusement ride, I placed the history of marriage as a pride-themed sermon. So I've shortened these opening words to make room for that. It's a little bit long. You'll thank me. You'll have faith. And now for our chalice lighting words. Beyond the brusque exterior, Lisa will light the chalice. Here we go. We light this chalice flame, symbol of our liberating faith. May its light make visible what is hidden from our view, the fragility behind the wall of arrogance, the tender longing behind the brusque exterior, and the beauty that lies just under the surface of all life. And in that spirit, I invite you to sing one of my favorite hymns, 128, For All That Is Our Life. Standing in spirit, if not in body, if you would. 128.
Thursday group.
For all that is our life. For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all that is the gift which we are called to use, to work a common good, and make our own days glad.
Bye today.
I love that. To build the common good and to make our own days glad. Let's find a nice still spot, settle into your seats, take in some nice slow breaths for a prayer.
His father died, by the way, a couple of weeks ago.
Oh.
So
Can we mute, please?
By Dick Gilbert. It is a cry from the lives of people battered by thoughtless words and brutal deeds. It comes from the lips of those who speak them and the lives of those who do them. Who of us can look inside another and know what is there of hope and hurt or promise and pain? Who can know from what far places each has come, or to what far places each may hope to go? Our lives are like fragile eggs. They crack and the substance escapes. Handle with care. Handle with exceedingly tender care, for there are human beings within. Human beings as valuable and vulnerable as we are, who feel as we feel, who hurt as we hurt. Life is too transient to be cruel with one another. It is too short for thoughtlessness, too brief for hurting. Life is long enough for caring. It is lasting enough for sharing, precious enough for love. Be gentle with one another.
In that spirit of caring for one another, we in this church always create space for people to share what's heavy on their hearts, what's light and needs to be said as well in a ritual we call Joys and Concerns. So I encourage people to come line up and come down, drop a stone. Publicity have come an infotaining journey through the history of marriage in the Western world. And given that our church, and particularly our Unitarian Universalist movement, has been so proactive around gay marriage, et cetera, and promoting, just sort of a progressive sense of things, I imagine us to be invited to be a preview on this amusement ride. So, this is designed to be a park set in red state America, and it's built to be like Disney World, where there's different colored street signs and themes that lead people different places. Our ride, or this ride, is in the intuitively LGBTQAI themed neighborhood called the Gayborhood. And dirt paths, of course, lead other places where led by wildflowers to an ecological area called No Planet B. All these different themes around. We are today in Religious Tolerance Town, and the golden age of marriage's ride. So we're going to invite you to fasten your seatbelts and keep your hands inside the car at all times. As mentioned earlier, because of Unitarian Universalism's commitment to marriage equality and women's rights, etc., our church has been invited to be a test audience for this ride. The cars are built to be sort of with our associations that we have with marriage. The first car has an old-fashioned kind of Cinderella carriage-like quality to it. The next car is a limousine. The final car is an American car, an old-fashioned car with the just married sign on the back, like used to be popular, and tin cans dragging behind it through this amusement ride. And we stand in the area boarding, and there's a German scholar named Magnus Hirschfeld, of which the ride is dedicated to. And he has an obscure place in the history. He was an early studier of human sexual behavior in Germany and an early advocate for LGBTQ rights. So we see an image of him. His robotic mouth, like at the Disney rides, comes to life. He says, "Marriage as we know it in the Western civilization today has a long history with roots in several different ancient cultures, of which Roman, Hebrew, and Germanic are most important. Our understanding of marriage today has further been shaped by the doctrines and policies of the medieval church, the demands of the Protestant Reformation, and the social impact of the Industrial Revolution." The scene closes with the words, "Let's explore that today." As his intro concludes and the cars pass by our robotic house that you sit in, the amusement cars turn the corner to the first real stop. We see multiple video screens, a video montage of people from all different cultures around the globe getting married. The videos show a mix of actual wedding ceremonies captured on film and those recreated for the sense of the ride. The repeating sequence of Cinderella-like carriages, limos, and just married cars crosses through a curtain and opens up into an area titled Marriage in Ancient Egypt. Most of the designers thought that ancient Israel was a good place or a perfect place to begin. Others feared that given the South's primarily traditional Christian audience, displaying the sexist marriage norms might actually serve to validate old ideas. Nevertheless, in contrary to the present administration, the ride designers chose to let the truth be the guide, and the debate continues. So we push through, we see Rabbi Abraham Heschel, famous rabbi. He begins with an explanation of ancient Israelite marriage. He serves as the host of this portion of the ride. The cars pass three simple scenes. The first of a scorned man. The second, a scene that depicts a man seemingly partnered with two women. The last one, a sullen-looking woman being handed a sheet of paper indicating divorce. We hear Herschel narrate the scholarship. As we learn from the Bible, the ancient Israelites had a patriarchal family structure where the status of women was low. In ancient Israel, women were regarded as property of their fathers and their husbands and could do nothing without their consent. The main purpose of marriage was procreation and the perpetuation of a man's name. Heschel's awkward robotic mouth accompanies the voice. He says every healthy person was expected to marry. Single men and women were despised. A man could have several wives and concubines. Jacob, for example, married two sisters, both Leah and Rachel. Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines. Divorce was not encouraged but permitted if a man found uncleanliness in his wife. In such a case, he simply wrote her a bill of divorce and sent her out of the house. However, it was virtually impossible for a wife to divorce her husband. As time passed, though, things changed a little bit. The move was towards monogamy in the ancient Israel world. Another change concerned the so-called Levirate rules, which was man's obligation to marry his brother's widow. That kind of marriage was somehow encouraged at times and sometimes prohibited, as all rules around marriage would turn to be. It was usually the patriarch who selected the bride for his son and who paid a bride price to her father. The acceptance of this bride price constituted a legally binding betrothal, which was followed by and a wedding ceremony when the bride took up residence in the new family. Over the loudspeaker, the announcement as we go through the next series of curtains is that we've just entered the hall in ancient Greece. Close to the moving ride are statues of men and women in those classic long robes and laurel wreaths we think of as classically Greece. A robed amatromic patriarch-type figure is suddenly illuminated by lightning from both above and below, lighting from both above and below. As the cars pass, he says this: in ancient Greece, marriage was seen as a fundamental social institution. Indeed, the great lawgiver Solon once contemplated making it compulsory. And in Athens, under Pericles, bachelors were excluded from certain important positions. Sparta, while encouraging sexual relationships between men, nevertheless insisted on them marrying and producing children. Single and childless men were treated with scorn. Then when there's two parents and you see a scene and they're negotiating marriage for their children, the paper sitting, a negotiated contract sitting on a table illuminated by light. Marriage was deemed important. It was equally treated, we hear over the loudspeaker, as a practical matter without much romantic significance. A father arranged the most advantageous marriage for his son and had a contract signed before witnesses. Very patriarchal. All marriages were monogamous in Greece. As a rule, the bridegroom was in his 30s, the bride was in her teens. As the bride moves forward, as a Greek mother tends to a handful of kids just behind him through the large window, we see a gathering of men for an important conversation. The voice and image of feminist author and scholar of early women's spirituality, Carol Christ, was invited to help bring to life Hirschfeld's work. She reads this: where in addition to the disparity in ages, there also existed an inequality in education and political rights. Women were considered inferior to men and remained confined to the home. Their main functioning as wives was to produce children. Many men in Greece also cultivated intense relationships with male adolescents. The legal inequality of the sexes was further reflected in divorce regulations. It was always easier for a husband to divorce a wife than vice versa. As the ride moves to ancient Rome, the first group of people, as we see a similar kind of situation with a Roman clerk standing together at a desk with a husband and a wife. In the next, it's a gathering of Romans dressed statues witnessing an angry married couple. The women had a number of personal items tucked under her arm. She was ready to be permanently exited from her home. The marriage laws and customs of ancient Rome are not easily summarized because they were rather varied and underwent significant changes during that period of time. Simplifying the issue too much, one may say that marriage and divorce were always personal civil arrangements between the participants and did not need the stamp of approval by the government or religious people. Early in Roman history, a husband had considerable power over his wife and children, whom he could punish, sell, or even kill if he saw fit. However, eventually women began to gain better and stronger legal positions and gained more and more control over their lives and their property. In imperial times, husbands and wives approached marriages as equals. Yet it seems there was also a decline in marriage during this period of time, and birth rates were dropped enough that the Emperor Augustus found it necessary to pass drastic laws compelling people to marry and penalizing those who remained single. There were several forms of marriage in Rome. The first, which was called marriage by usus, probably mispronounced, involved no ceremony at all and just involved a couple living together for 1 year. Divorce was just as informal. For a more formal kind of marriage called contemptio, began with a ceremony in front of witnesses and was also dissolved with the need by a ceremony. Cicero's voice, who's the narrator of this section, continues. Members of the upper class usually preferred an elaborate ceremony and were married by conferation in front of 10 witnesses and a priest. In the case of a divorce, for them, another ceremony was required. As the ride proceeds through 2 columns, we get into the area where it is said that Romans tolerated prostitution and concubinage and had no qualms about homosexual relationships. Their marriage laws were remarkably fair to women and thus contributed to their emancipation. In the Middle Age, Charlemagne becomes the speaker of this, and although the change came only gradually, the rise of Christianity produced a profound change in the laws and customs. The first Christian emperors were more or less content with the traditional Roman law. However, under varying political and religious pressures, they alternately broadened and restricted divorce regulations. Things always were changing. Since the new Christian asceticism favored virginity and sexual abstinence over marriage, they also repealed older laws which penalized unmarried or childless people. We see nuns getting inducted into convents. About halfway through this scene, we hear the following centuries, marriage came more and more under the influence of the church. Compared to Rome, the newly Christianized countries in Northern Europe had rather barbaric marriage customs and treated women a little better than domestic slaves. In Germanic law, for example, marriage was essentially a business deal between the bridegroom and the bride's father. The symbol of a successful bride sale was a ring, the first evidence of ring in terms of marriage, which was given to the bride herself as a form of down payment. The ring constituted a betrothal, I think that's right, betrothal, and the full payment of the bride price was to be paid when the marriage actually took place. The civilizing influence of the church, as Hirschfeld describes it, kind of biased, soon refined these primitive customs. Unfortunately, at the same time, the Catholic Church required new rules around marriage. Now marriages couldn't be divorced as easily, and they needed to be annulled. And marriages could be annulled for a number of reasons. I'm not even going to get into it, but the church had control over who could get divorced, and many people were found reasons that the marriage was not to be valid. That rule still somewhat applies today. Then we see an image of the actor Charlemagne on the video screen. Charlemagne, still acting as the mouthpiece for Hirschfeld's work, says, "As a result of these new regulations, the influence of the church was greatly strengthened. Very often, extensive clerical investigations were given to the couples to see if there were impediments or reasons that marriages should not be brought to fruition." That's where you get the language around, does anyone oppose this marriage of these two people at marriages? The church began to post also bans before each wedding, publicly requesting whether there was a reason they shouldn't be married. Parents could also coax the necessary permissions out of the priests, and it basically took advantage of this in a political way. Marriage was a sacrament that sprang from the free consent of people, so the church then had sort of greater control over the marriage rights rather than civil people. As the Reformation era arrived, there were civil powers that pulled back those powers from the church, and the Protestants basically made marriage to a large degree a much more civil reason and banned church marriages for a period of time. Churches, as the ride proceeds, we also hear an image of Joan of Arc, flames appearing around her, reminding us of her identity and her fate. We hear her issue Hirschfeld's words. The Protestant Reformation of the 16th century rejected the prevailing concept of marriage with many other Catholic doctrines. Martin Luther declared marriage to be a worldly thing that belongs to the realm of government. A similar opposition was made by Calvin. The English Puritans in the 17th century even passed an act of parliament asserting that marriage to be of no sacrament, and soon thereafter made marriage purely secular. From that point on, it was a balance of secular and church powers as to what marriage would be. In England, marriages by usus, or common law marriages, were then permitted, and the development of the English colonies, we inherited that here. As recently as 1790, they were still recognized in common law marriage. It was still recognized in several states, and that debate continues on. So, Henry VIII, Bismarck, lots of those figures had pulled back the powers of the church. I have to edit this because it's way too long. Sorry about that. As the cars move forward in a few vignettes, the map of the 13 colonies appears on the video screen, and helping each of the moment. The next is a scene with Napoleon standing before them. Behind the statues exists a large wall map conveying that divorce was illegal in all parts of Southern Europe. A bold print over the map made divorces illegal until 1970 in Portugal, Spain, and Italy. A more efficient divorce court was not established until the middle of the 19th century. As we pass through this, we come to realize that marriage is always on the move. It has a patriarchal, controlling nature from men. It's always been a balance, a little bit of some versions of love and some versions of control. And we realize, as we reach the modern world, that marriage is probably in what we think of as its golden age. People, individuals, later in life, not entirely controlled by their parents, are allowed to come together, making a free choice about who they spend their lives with. That is presently, as we know, under threat to some degree. Two people consenting, even more than two people in times, consenting to be together should be something this church continues to defend in the same way we advocated for it 20, 25 years ago, and had some of the first marriages in the state, a number of, particularly women, married in this church. So, the end of the ride, as I've envisioned it, we see a gathering of people, all different forms of healthy marriages are in the waiting room, allowed to sort of have conversations with people about the way they've met, to women, men, lots of different people. And they're dispersed to allow to talk to people in this setting about what it is to be together and how ideally their lives have been shaped positively by marriage. The couples who offer their services at the end of this ride, where people just stir around or invited to just be, are pre-screened for their emotional balance, given a few hours of training, and given free access to the park for their participation in the amusement ride of what a marriage is today and should be preserved to be. Amen. I had to edit that one. This is way too long. So, sorry about that. Our closing hymn is De Coloris, 305 in our hymnal, I believe. wise move. Close on a good note. As we extinguish our chalice, let us rise as we are able, take hands as we are comfortable, and speak together our words of blessing to each other and the world. Please stand and rise if you are willing or able. Hold your hands. Let's go out into the world in peace. Be of good courage. Hold fast to what is good. Return no evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Rejoice in beauty. Speak of love with word and deed. Honor all beings. Go in peace. Be peace. Remember, we have our annual meeting today. Please be back here. I think we're starting at 12, right? Yeah.